an exciting time with both of you. You know, it's been a fun and exciting time with both of you. Getting to know you, getting to know each of you, and also um, training, working with you in this business analysis journey is also a fun and interesting thing for me. As I always say, is the end of the training is not the end of our collaboration as individuals. It's just this platform is just is just the starting point of continuous future collaboration, um, and also networking for each and every one of us. And I believe that for everyone that comes on this platform is divinely orchestrated by God, and there's a reason. So I really want to appreciate you before having that trust and also having that leap of faith to um, go through business analysis with Uptrust. It's a pleasure. Thank you so much. I really appreciate, and my heart desires always is that what's the things you get from this program will help you to um, 10x your career, 10x in terms of exponentially grow in your career, whether you want to continually pursue business analysis or you want to apply it in other areas of your career. It can help you 10x to grow exponentially in every aspect of your career by the special grace of God in Jesus' name. All right, I'm a
Amen.
pastor. I'm a pastor, but people don't know. All right,
Ah,
so
no. Amen.
I'm a pastor. Okay, so we'll be starting. Today we'll be looking at solution evaluation. With the title or the topic on its own is clear on what is all about solution evaluation. It's just like when you say West, right? West is for evaluating credentials, results. So evaluating to see if it meets the demand, right? If it is satisfactory, right? It's just like at the end of every semester for those of us in school, or those of us that went through school, right? At the end of every semester, we have an exam, right? Even before the exam, we have continuous assessments, right? Tests and all of that we do. We have take-home assignments that we do to evaluate if our understanding of the concept and everything is satisfactory for us to qualify to another stage, right? And that does not mean that when we are in university, when we take year one exam, then we shouldn't take exam till we graduate. No, for every stage, we ought to always take exam, and that is the way solutions are. That does not mean that when you evaluate, solution evaluation talks about evaluating a solution at a particular instance in time, and so that for the fact that you've evaluated a solution vis-a-vis some sort of metrics or measurements or KPIs, does not mean that in the next 1 year or 6 months or 2 years, you say, we've evaluated this thing 3 years ago. Now, why should we evaluate it now? No. Solution evaluation encourages you to, over time, look at other metrics because the tastes, the desire, the need, the expectation of customer changes over time, right? What a customer expects from a product might change over time, maybe in the course of 2 years. They might expect to do additional things. They might expect to have much more efficiency. And it's because of that, it's due to this solution evaluation. That's why I see most of these IT companies or most of these softwares we have around us, WhatsApp and the rest, they do periodic updates, upgrades of their solution. By the time they've looked at it and said, okay, what are some of the things that the solution have now that is not aligning to reach its expected value? It could be that there are some bugs on the solution. So come up with some metrics, come up with some things that we need to do to evaluate those bugs and see how to improve. Because for evaluation, the beauty about evaluation is to always have areas of improvement. I don't know about you guys, but for myself, when I was in primary school, then when we write exams, right? Let's say in primary six, in primary four, we write our first term exam, right? when we resume second term, the very first week of resumption, the teacher takes time to walk us through our exam, what the right answers were. So it's more or less like recommending ways for us to improve in case we see such questions. So solution evaluation is not complete until you have recommended actions to increase the value of that solution. So we'll just go right in. I just have to say that to give an overview or a background to what we'll be looking at today. Please confirm you can see my screen and that you can hear me before I start shooting.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you so very much. So solution evaluation on its own basically describes the various tasks, the various activities that we perform as business analysts to assess the performance of a particular solution and also assess the value that that solution is delivering to the enterprise, which is the organization, or the customer. And not just assessing those values and performances, going further to recommend removal of barriers, removal of constraints, dependencies that will prevent the full realization of that value, right? Some solutions have potential value, right? But there are some constraints. Constraints might be internal. Internal in the sense that probably you don't have the facility, right? Capacity to run that solution. A good example is this. Imagine if Facebook don't have the needed amount of storage capacity to accommodate the account of everyone or every of their users. That is a constraint for Facebook. So we recommend way to remove those barriers or constraints. Okay, maybe the ways for us to overcome these constraints could be for us to have to acquire more servers, right? That is the constraint being internal. The constraint on its own too could be external, right? A good example is what's happening with Twitter in Nigeria. Twitter solution is having a lot of problem in Nigeria because of external constraints from the government. The government have banned the use of Twitter in Nigeria for about 4 to 5 to 6 months now, right? So Twitter also have to recommend ways to remove that constraint. Does it mean negotiating, coming to the table to dialogue with the government or meeting some regulatory? If the government says, okay, for you to become operational in our country, you need to meet this criteria 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then look at how to meet those criteria, negotiate, see if those criteria aligns with their business goals, their business principles, their modus operandi, the scope of the business, and all of that, right? Because I mean, one of the strong reasons that the federal government is giving that Twitter is not paying tax. It's not a taxable entity in Nigeria, and for that, they will need to set up an office in Nigeria, and that is what Twitter even said that okay, they're willing to do that. So, as a BA, the solution, the constraint might be internal, it might be external. It's left for you to understand what's that constraint, what is making the solution not to perform effectively, not to deliver the required value to stakeholders. So while there may be some similarities to the activities that is performed in strategy analysis, where you look at the current state, the future state, the change strategy, and the risk assessment, right? Or even the potential strategy to follow. Solution evaluation at its own must ensure that there's an existing solution, right? A solution evaluation, looking at the current, right? What the current solution is, right? What future in terms of what should be expected, what measure should the solution have in the future in order for it to meet up with the value. The only difference with solution evaluation and strategy analysis is that in solution evaluation, you have a solution that currently exists. But in strategy analysis, you necessarily do not have a solution that exists. You're basically looking at a current business process, a current business opportunity, and how should the future state of that business process, how should the future state of that business activity look like? So solution evaluation basically on its own is performed on solution components in varying stages of the development. There are different stages you can perform solution evaluation. You don't just wait until maybe you have spent 6 months to build the solution before you start performing solution evaluation. But one of the foremost and earliest stage of solution evaluation is done on prototypes. So by the time you have done requirements and then design the mock-ups and then done the prototypes, you can basically walk your stakeholders or your customers through that particular prototype, which is a limited version of that particular solution, right? Or a low fidelity version of that particular solution. You can walk your stakeholders through that particular prototype to get to understand if that solution is going to deliver the needed value to them and what recommendations you can get from there. Another one is pilot or beta releases. If you go on Play Store, so many applications have beta version, and beta version is used for acquiring feedback, right? When people use a beta version, is not as functional as the actual version. It also provides the developer or provides the company opportunity to get customer feedback. If you want to know which functionality customers love the most or what the customers love to do the most, you can use the beta version or pilot releases. These are limited implementations or versions of a solution used in order to walk through problems and understand how well it actually delivers values before they are fully implemented or released into the solution. And then we also have operational releases. So you have full versions of a system completed and also used to achieve business objectives, execute a business process, or fulfill a desired outcome. A good example is operational releases is a good example of operational releases is versioning. Let's say you release versions 0.01, maybe then after 8 months you release another version 0.12. So you can use those operational releases to measure to see if to evaluate the solution in terms of what value is the solution delivering now? Is it delivering the needed value, and what are areas of improvement? Actually understand solution evaluation or to perform solution evaluation, you need to look at 5 critical areas when performing solution evaluation. And number one of them is measuring the performance of that solution, right? You can't evaluate something without measuring its current performance, which is the current state. Let's say, for instance, I tell you, Elsie, I want us to improve. I want us to evaluate. Let's all evaluate. Let's say Jumia, right? Let's evaluate Jumia. For us to evaluate Jumia, for Elsie to evaluate Jumia, the very first thing that Elsie you need to do is to measure the performance of Jumia as it is now currently. And this is done to assess the performance of Jumia, including how Jumia aligns, how the solution, right? How the e-commerce solution of Jumia aligns with Jumia's business goals and objectives, and also perform some set of assessments. So when you're talking about solution evaluation, you're looking at that solution now in line with the organization, in line with the business, in line with the enterprise. Is it in line with the business goals? Is it does it complement? Will it help us to achieve our business objective? If Jumia's objective is to become the #1 e-commerce platform in Africa, we look at the Jumia website, the Jumia app, right? Will this app help us to achieve our business objective of becoming the #1 e-commerce platform in Africa by 2023, right? We look at the capabilities, the number of users we have on Jumia now, the marketing aspect of it, number of businesses we have on Jumia, the number of deals that are done on Jumia, the number of failures that the solution have, right? Are there periods that we have uptime and downtime? What are the key business drivers for the solution? We look at all of those, we measure those performances, right? Vis-a-vis the business goals. These things, if we keep all these conditions static, will it help us to achieve our business goal or business objective for 2023? And then the next thing is to analyze those performance. You have come out with those you've measured those solution performance, right? Then those measures, those performance measures that you have been able to identify, you analyze them. You get to examine those information that you have gathered regarding the performance of the solution in order for you to understand the value that it delivers to that organization or even to the stakeholders, right? And determine whether that particular measurements, right, these performance measures are meeting up with current business needs. After that, you also assess if there are limitations to the solution. What limitations does the solution have, right? And then assess if there are any limitation to the enterprise or to the organization. So does the solution have a limitation? If yes, what are those limitations? If no, fine. Does the enterprise have some sort of limitation, right, that is going to affect the solution? If yes, what are they? If no, fine. So you need to understand you need to assess to get to understand the various limitations of the solution and of the enterprise. And after you've done that, you then go ahead to recommend various actions to increase the value of that solution, to increase solution value, right? Every customer wants their solutions to be improved. Let me give you a very good example. So when Access Bank first launched their mobile app, it was just the normal Access Bank mobile app. And what it does was actually limited, right? For a long time, I was using the Access mobile app for a long time. So there was a day I wanted to buy something and I wanted to make a very huge transaction, very huge transaction at once. So at that point, I was trying to use the Access mobile app and the transaction was failing. It was failing. So luckily for me, I have some friends that work in Access Bank. So one of my friends who is in their branch in Asaba, I had to call the guy Victor. That is Victor, right? Who was part of the session earlier and left, right? So I called Victor and I told Victor that what's up with you guys' solution that blah blah blah. But I was like, oh, Genesis, you're still using the Access Bank app. I said yes. He said, okay, that's they are looking for a way to discontinue that solution because it has a lot of limitation. That's the one that is good now and what they are trying to facilitate and also do a lot of campaign and marketing and advertisement for is the Access More mobile app. So that was my first time hearing of Access More mobile app. So I said, oh, really? He said yes. So I had to go ahead and then downloaded it from the Play Store and installed it. And within minutes, I was able to perform my transaction. Right now, that Access More mobile app, the first time I downloaded it, then it never had the capability for me to use my fingerprint to log in. I had to always use my password. Until recently, when I changed phone, so I had to download the Access More mobile app again, and I realized that they've done an upgrade to it. And the first thing was that they tell me that I should register my fingerprint so I can use it to log in. So instead of using my password at every time, whenever I want to log into my mobile app, I have to put in my password, type it in. So now I can just, by the swap of my fingerprint, I log in. So it basically tells you a solution whereby the business is continuously evaluating the solution to see how can this solution deliver value, or how can our solution deliver value to our stakeholders, to our customers, to the business itself. So we'll just take a deep dive into all of these various steps and processes of performing solution evaluation. So we'll start with measuring solution. How do we actually measure performance solution? So solution performance is done for us to define, for us to identify and understand the performance measures and collect and use that data that we've collected, the data regarding those performance measures, to evaluate the effectiveness of a solution in relation to the value it brings. So it's just for us to define and identify those performance measures, right? Solutions, there's no solution that we have on earth today, right, that does not have a performance measure. Even if we say we are not talking about software solution, you want to talk about business processes, there must be always something that that can use to measure performances. It could be the turnaround time to issue resolution. Say, okay, we want to ensure that for every issue we have, right? For every issue our customer have, the turnaround time should not be more than 8 hours, right? Some will tell you that turnaround time should be more than 18 hours or 12 hours. But there's actually one business solution that still now it annoys me the most. And you keep on wondering. I don't know if this have happened to you guys, or if you experienced it, which I believe people in that sector ought to see how to improve that particular solution. It's not a software solution, right? It's the banking system, the banking environment. A good example is this. Yes, when it comes to finances, you might have an account with Access Bank and you're doing transaction to somebody in probably Zenith Bank, and then that money, the sharing and everything, the whole things involved are all different. So now I want to make a transaction, right? And that transaction fails. Let's say I send money and then the person does not receive the alert. Most times it happens with POS. You want to use the POS, right? And then when you slot in your you want to use to make payments, and when you slot in your ATM to make payments, probably in a mall, right? That's happened to me several times. In a mall, you realize that you are being debited, but the POS shows that the transaction declined. And they will now tell you that you have, when you go to the bank to complain, you have to wait 7 business days before that could be overturned. Come on, 7 business days, that's a lot and a lot of time for me to wait for my money to be returned to me, right? Or refunded me because of a failed problem in your processes. So I don't know. That's a very interesting case study where professionals could actually look into, who work in that industry, to see how to improve, because people are not getting joy. People are not happy for the fact that they have to wait 7 business days for, maybe you're trying to buy something in ShopRite and then you want to pay 30,000 naira for everything you bought, and you get debited, but on their own POS it declines. So are you going to now start? Because at first, that moment, I'm sure you never want to say, let me use another ATM to pay for it again, because you begin to doubt if it's still going to if that scenario is still going to happen, whereby you get debited and there will be no payment, thereby losing 60K at a point, and you have to wait 7 business days before you get refunded. So the whole thing is complicated for me, and it's not a satisfactory process for customers, right? So if people in that sector can actually perform solution evaluation, right, look at how can we actually improve on this, rather than people waiting 7 business days. Can they just wait 24 hours, or can they just wait 3 hours? It's just like what we have on the ATMs before, right? Before, when I believe 5 years ago, when you go to ATM to withdraw, and sometimes it will debit you, but it will not give you the cash, right? Before, they had to sit down and think of, how can we improve this process now? So we have some ATMs that, if that scenario happens, automatically you get refunded within minutes, right? There's some ATM that you go to tell you that this ATM does not retract cash or something like that. They tell you that, to tell you, okay, even though you get debited and cash does not come out, that cash will be refunded in the next, let's say, 2 minutes or thereabout. So if that can be done from the ATM standpoint, can that be done in their own core solution or their business process? So there's a lot of things that are involved in all of this, and many people don't. I don't know. Maybe they're benefiting from it. I don't know what to say. Sorry, I'm trying to rant. This particular stage is something I'm very unhappy with, but it just shows that solution evaluation can be performed in whatever business domain you find yourself. It doesn't necessarily have to be a software. It could be a business process. You evaluate, because your business process, you are offering products and services. That product and services you are offering is a solution to your customer, right? You are using it to solve a problem or meet their needs, or you are using it to make them excited in some way, right? That is a solution you're providing to them. How do you improve on that solution, on that product, on that service you are delivering, is what solution evaluation talks about. So performance may be assessed through key performance indicators that is aligned with the organization's enterprise measures, that is aligned with the organization's goals and objectives for a project. Your performance can also be a process performance target or test for a software application to effectively measure your performances for every solution you have, whether it is software solution or a service that you are offering or whatever thing. The first thing you need to have at the back of your mind is the business objective. If you don't know the objective of the business, then how then do you want to now measure the performances? And then if you don't know the solution that currently exists, because a solution must currently exist before you can measure it. If there's no solution, if there's no services that currently exist, what then are you going to measure the performance of? If there's no product or software that currently exists, then what are you going to be measuring the performance of? So there must be an existing solution and there must be an objective that that solution was or is expected to meet up with. So how do we now measure the performance of a solution? The first one is to define those solution performance. So when measuring solution performance, as a BA, you need to determine if the current measures exist for that solution, or if methods of capturing them are in place. So you need to understand and get to realize to the point that whereby you're able to find out that current measures exist for this solution. What are those current measures? What are those current metrics that exist? And if they exist, how are they currently captured or identified, or how are they currently discovered? As a BA, you need to ensure that any existing performance measure are as accurate as possible, they are relevant, they are discovered, and they are elicited any additional performance measure that you've identified by stakeholders. Business goals, business objectives, business processes are common sources of performance measures. Performance measures may be influenced or imposed by third parties such as other solution vendors. In terms of documentation, the documentation whereby we use to capture our performance measures from the business angle and from the solution angle. For the business angle, we capture them on the business requirement document, BRD. And for the solution angle, we capture them from the SRS or the FRD, which is the functional requirement document. So solution performance measures may be quantitative, right? Basically, them being numerical or being countable or finite or usually involving amount or quantities or rates. What that means is that maybe the performance measure would be that the solution should be able to cater for the solution should be able to scale, right? When we have over 1.5 million users on the solution, the system should be able to scale to accommodate growing number of users up to 1.5 million, right? Another that way, the solution measure is quantitative, is numerical, right? We are measuring by 1.5 million users. When we have that, system should be able to scale and accommodate that. And that one could be another quantitative reason, could be that the solution should be able to perform over 2 billion transactions at a go, right? A good example is, let's say, for instance, you have so many core banking solutions, right? Most of these companies, they use their core banking solutions. And then you have within their core banking, you have their credit management, or should I say their lending solution, where they do a lot of lending. And this also speaks to the project that you guys are working on. So they do a lot of lending, right? We have the GMV, which is the gross merchandise value, that particular solution is processing, or that particular business is processing. In this case, it's 4.5 billion, right? So at a glance, if you want to set up a solution performance measure for this, you can say, I want to make it a quantitative one. You can say that the system should be able to process at least 4,000 transactions in a minute, or should be able to process 1 million transactions in a day. So in that way, you're already setting performance metrics or measures for that system that can be measured quantitatively, right? That you can use to understand if this solution is meeting the expectations or the measures or performance measures that have been defined. Another one could be qualitative measures, which are basically subjective and can include attitudes, perceptions, and any other subjective responses. It has to do with customers, users, and others involved in the operation of a solution to have perception of how well the solution is meeting their need. What this means is, for instance, you could say that the solution should users should be able to perform their tasks in not more than 3 clicks, right? Should be able to perform a particular task in not more than 3 clicks. Bringing that to a non-IT related solution, you can talk about things that has to do with, let's say, banking hall. For every customer that comes into the bank, a customer should not spend more than 5 minutes on the queue, right? Or you can say that a customer should be able to give, customer should be satisfied enough to give us a 5-star rating or 5-star review after using our services. So you come up with a qualitative way to measure, or qualitative way to measure the performance measures of that particular solution. The next one is to validate those performance measures. Validating performance measures helps us to ensure that the assessment of the solution is useful. And as a BA, you need to validate these performance measures and any influencing criteria with your stakeholders. So you have stakeholders, people in that area, like your domain subject matter expert, like your implementation subject matter expert, that are very good in that particular instance. You can validate those performance measures with them to get a better understanding of those performance measures. Then the next thing is to collect the performance measures. When collecting your performance measures, you need to consider the volume or the sample size. So collecting basically means monitoring and tracking the solution to observe if it meets those performance measures. It could be done on a daily basis, it could be done on a routine basis, it could be done on a weekly basis, it could be done on an hourly rate. You could say, okay, I want to sit with the system to see the sort of data, the sort of input, the sort of activities that happens in the system. It could be a case of observing, okay, since we said that we don't want customers to spend more than 5 minutes on the queue when they come into the banking hall to make inquiry. You can have someone to stand by and observe every customer that comes in. If they spend more than 5 minutes, if a customer spends 7 minutes, you try and monitor, okay, what is the number of what is the proportion of customers that spend 7 minutes? Assuming we have 50 customers visiting the bank in a day or 100 customers visiting the bank in a day, out of that 100, what proportion spend more than 5 minutes on the queue? What proportion spends below 5 minutes on the queue? What proportion spent exactly 5 minutes on a queue? So you kind of collect those performance measures either by observing, either by monitoring or tracking, either by doing a lot of solution system analysis to get all of that information. And then you look at the frequency and the timing of your collection, and then the token, the time taken for more recently for it to tend to be more representative than older data. That is the occurrence, right? The occurrence of that particular incidence in that particular solution. So using qualitative measures, business analysts can facilitate discussions to estimate the value realized by a solution. Stakeholders that are knowledgeable about the operation and the use of solution reach a consensus based on facts and reasonable assumptions as perceived by them. That takes us to the next aspect of the next step of measuring, evaluating solutions, which is analyzing those performance measures. So we have basically defined the performance measures, right? We have identified the performance measures. Then we need to analyze those performance measures. And in analyzing them, we are basically providing insights into those onto the performance of the solution in relation to the value it brings, right? So we realize that 30% of our customers are spending 10 minutes on the queue. 5% are spending 15 minutes on the queue. 40% are spending 5 minutes on the queue, and then 15% are spending 4 minutes and below on the queue. So we need to now look at all of those measures that we have taken, those observations that we've had, right, that we need to capture. Then we now analyze those things, right, to provide insight into the performance of the solution, into the performance of that particular solution. In this case, the solution to that problem is the solution to that thing could be seeing how to stop. The solution could be something related to stopping reducing customer waiting time, right? And I remember there was a session we are having, and I said one of the solutions could be having a mobile customer care agent, right, who can easily attend to people on the queue, and if they have minor issues or minor inquiry, can easily respond and attend to those inquiries, and so that they won't have to stay on the queue to delay those that have more complex related inquiries to make, right? So we can use that to test that particular solution of having a mobile customer care agent and see if it actually helps to meet the performance measure of ensuring that customers don't spend more than 5 minutes on the queue, right? So in order to meaningfully analyze performance measures, the BA will need to have a thorough understanding of the potential value that stakeholders hope to achieve with that solution. If the potential value that stakeholders want to achieve with reducing customer waiting time to 5 minutes is if the potential value is probably 1, to increase the efficiency of the staff, 2, to increase customer satisfaction, 3, to reduce crowd in the banking hall, 4, probably to improve their brand, right? If these are the 4 key value or business value that the stakeholder, that the bank wants to have or have adopted for this particular, that made them to come up with this solution of having a mobile customer care agent that can attend to issues to those on the queue before they get to the key customer care agents on the decks. If these are the values that they are hoping for this to help them drive, right? So in order for us to meaningfully analyze the the performance measure, we need to understand these potential values that the stakeholders want to achieve, right? So the level of risk of the solution, the risk tolerance of both stakeholders and enterprise, and other related stated targets are very, very important to assist the business analyst to analyze variables for that particular business. So there needs to be a proper understanding of what the potential value is. If you don't have a good understanding of what potential value or what business value, right? What business value does stakeholders want to get out of this solution? If you don't understand that business value, you will not know how to effectively analyze the metrics that you have gathered appropriately. So you need to understand the potential value so that you can cross-check, you can use it to come up with an insight and say, okay, because 30% of our customers are spending 10 minutes on the queue, our value, the value that we intend to have as a business is reduced. It's reducing the value by this. Let's do this. That's affected our customer satisfaction. Our customers are not really satisfied because when they are in the bank, they are standing in the queue for 10 minutes, they are grumbling, they are rumbling, and all of that, right? Because 6% of our customers are spending 15 minutes. Because of that, it makes them to talk to say derogatory things about our bank when they get out there. They say things, they give a poor review or rating of our bank, right? And that way it's affecting our brand. So all of that, you need to understand the potential value so that you know how to effectively analyze the performance measures that you have identified. And then you also need to get a grasp of the solution performance measures. So you know the potential value and you have gotten the performance measures from the very first step you did. That can then help you to effectively analyze the performance measure. So how do you now analyze the performance measure? Number one, you can analyze solution performance versus the delivered value, as I mentioned. earlier. So you know the solution performance, how the solution is performing. 30% are spending 10 minutes, 40% are spending 5 minutes. This thing, 15% or 6% are spending 15 minutes. Maybe the remaining 50% are spending 4 minutes and below. So you've already gathered your solution performance, right? The measures, you've measured them. And then the desired value is that one, they shouldn't spend more than 5 minutes on the queue, right? Number two, the desired value is that it's to help to improve your customer experience, helps to make your customers more satisfied, branding, making your staff more efficient, and all of that. So you can analyze vis-a-vis solution performance and the desired value. Another one is to look at the risk. You analyze based on the risks. Performance measures may uncover new risks to the solution performance and also to the enterprise. These risks are identified and also managed like any other risks you have in a business or in a solution. Another one, you can also analyze the trend. Trend in the sense that it could be that when those performance measures are taken, might be in the morning. Probably when you come in the afternoon, it could be maybe around, if you come in the afternoon, probably around 12, 1, 2. It could be that customers are already spending up to 2 minutes on the queue, right? But early in the morning, it could be that customers end up spending 10 minutes, 15 minutes on the queue. So in that way, you're monitoring the trend. It could also be that because it is Monday, a lot of people will want to rush into the bank on Monday, right? Because of transactions. Heavy transactions are done mostly on Mondays. It could be that because it is Monday mornings, there will be a lot of queue in the banking hall, right? So customers end up spending probably even 20 minutes on the queue. Or it could be that it's on Friday afternoon where people want to see how to withdraw money they're going to use for weekend. There will be a lot of queue. And this particular measures occurs majorly at a particular time. So you can analyze based on trend to know what are the various trends for this particular occurrences, for this performance that the solution is doing. In the case of a system, right? In the case of a system, I remember back then, right? When we started this whole telecom journey in Nigeria, and then we started from telecom, we went into internet journey, right? Started browsing. I remember back then, if I wanted to download, I don't have to download during the day because during the day, if I download it, download will be going very slow. But when you wait at night to download, whether it's a movie or it's an application or it's a software you are downloading, it will be very fast. And that is because of the trend that at night, many people are not using the internet services, right? So it is pretty fast at night. But during the day, because of the high influx, the high flux and interaction and usage of customers, so the quality of service reduces during the day. So all of these are trends that you can use to analyze the performance of that particular solution. Another one is the accuracy. The accuracy of the performance measures is essential to the validity of their analysis because as a BA, you need to test and analyze the data collected by the performance measures to ensure that they are as accurate as possible. So let's say, for instance, in this instance, in this case, you're not the one that measured the performances. You're not the one that identified the performance measures or measured them at the first place. You just joined and they say, okay, these are the performance measures that we come up with. It's also good for you to test and validate the accuracy. Testing and validating the accuracy might need you going on to observe those performance measures that they have stated. Probably you perform that performance measures, you measure that performance yourself, right? You observe so that you can validate and also ensure that the measures are as accurate as possible. And then the last one is then to look at if there are any variances to the performances. The difference between expected and actual performance represents a variance that is considered when analyzing your solution performance. The root cause analysis may be necessary to determine the underlying causes of significant variances within a particular solution. As a BA, you need to ensure you provide recommendations on how to improve performance and also reduce any variances that are made in the your aspect of recommending actions to increase solution value. The next thing we're now looking on is how to assess what sort of limitation the solution has. So assessing solution limitation. Assessment of the solution limitation is basically done to determine the factors internal to the solution that will end up restricting the full realization of value. So what are those factors that are internal to the solution that will end up causing the solution not to perform in its expected, to deliver its expected value or expected objectives? Assessing solution limitations identifies the root causes for underperforming and ineffective solutions and solution components. If the solution has not met potential value presently or in the past, the BA will need to determine which factors, like what are the factors that are responsible for the solution not to meet its expected business values. Are those factors internal to the solution, or are they external to the solution? And are they factors that are limiting the value of that solution? Assessing solution limitation focuses on assessing those factors that are internal to the solution. And this can be performed at any point during the life cycle of that solution, right? It may occur on a solution component. It could be a component of the solution. It could be on a completed solution prior to full implementation, or an existing solution that is currently working within an organization. For us to effectively assess solution limitations, you need to have a better understanding of the solution that has been implemented and the performance measures that you have collected from that solution. To effectively assess the limitations of the solution, you need to identify internal solution component dependencies. So solutions often have internal dependencies that limit the performances of the entire solution to the performance of the least effective components. As a BA, you'll be required to identify solution components which have dependencies on other solution components. A good example is this. Let's say if you said the solution to this particular, you said the solution to reducing customer waiting time could be having a mobile customer care agent, right, to attend to those on the queue. Let's say a limitation to that solution, internal, could be that the customer care agent does not have a good understanding of the various, does not have the capacity, right? Is not competent enough, has a competency issue to attend. The competency issue might not be probably in terms of understanding the businesses or thereabouts. It could be, sorry, a minute, please. Kindly give me a minute. All right. Sorry. Can you please see here, or have I lost you, ladies?
Yes, you have lost us.
No, he has not. I hear.
Hey,
did I lost you at? Let me know.
teacher.
Did I lost you at Oshodi or at
You lost me.
as VAI?
I'm just be thinking of how you would leave me. Yeah, this is our last question.
Don't think
Why
about
you
that one.
become-
Focus on the session first now. Then can start thinking about that one. I'm not leaving you. I'm not leaving any of you. People, I'm as reachable as always.
Said the
Right?
comfort. Okay.
They said the comforter. So I'm always reachable. I'm one click away. I'm one call away. So so as I'm saying, I was trying to talk about how solution dependencies could be internal, right? So you have the customer care agents. she could have the person, he or she could have some competency issue, not basically in the sense of not basically in the sense of understanding what to respond to customer problem, or basically how she responds. So maybe she has some communication problem. She doesn't know, she or he doesn't know effective communication, how to communicate, because for you to effectively respond to customer issues, there's some level of empathy, there's some level of way of active listening, right, which is part of communication, some level of understanding and empathizing with the customer needs, with the customer, what they are going through, right? The customer comes and tells you that, what is wrong with this bank? I don't know. Why is it that I can't even do this thing? You don't say, oh, God, stop today, shall waiting be your problem. But when you say, we are so sorry, I understand. This must have been so stressful for you, right? Oh, so sorry about this. Okay, but this is how you can do it. In that way, you've empathized with the customer, you've brought an emotional aspect to it, and customers' problems are solved amicably, right? So you can identify internal solution component dependencies, which are dependencies that are internal to that solution, right? They're not external to the solution, they are internal to the solution. It could be that there's a component that is not functioning well. It could be that there's a component that if it is not completed, if it is not satisfactory, the solution might not function effectively, right? Just as I gave the case of maybe the solution to the problem of reducing customer waiting time. What do you say, Moturaya?
I'm here. Oh, I'm still waiting for you.
Waiting for me on. Hello.
Genesis, please. Can you continue?
I'm stretching. Don't worry.
Okay. So the first one is to identify internal solution component dependencies. The next one is for you to investigate solution problems, right? So this helps to determine when it is determined that the solution is consistently or repeatedly producing ineffective outputs. Problem analysis is performed in order to identify the sources of the problem. So when you realize that the solution that you are procuring or that you have proposed or that you have set up is not satisfying or is not meeting up with the business, with the solution expectations, right? There's a lot of problem coming up. In short, instead of having a reduced customer waiting time, we now have a much more increased customer waiting time. Then you now investigate to understand what are some of the problems that solution have. Is it problems in terms of maybe because it's just one person attending to the entire customers that are on the queue? Should we have more people attending, more customer agents, more customer care agents attending? Maybe you have 3 more or increase the number to 6. So that could also be something you can look at. Then we can also assess based on impact assessments. As a BA, you review the identified problem in order to assess the effect they may have on the operation of the organization or the ability of the solution to deliver its potential value. This requires you to determine the severity of the problem, the probability of the reoccurrence of the problem, the impact on business operations, and the capacity of the business to absorb the impact. So as a BA, you need to identify which problems must be resolved, which of those problems should we mitigate through other activities or approaches, and which can be accepted. Other activities or approaches may include additional quality control measures, new or adjusted business processes, or additional support for exceptions to the desired outcome. In addition to assessing the impact, right, you need to identify the problems, assess the risks to the solution, and also potential limitations of the solution. The risk assessment is specific to the solution and also specific to the limitations within that solution. Now, the final piece for us then is now to come up with our recommendations, right? You have done this, you measure this, you analyze, then you assess it, then you need to come up with recommendations, because the beauty of business analysis is to actually add value, to make recommendations. You are sitting as a consultant, right? And as an advisory professional, saying, okay, because I've looked at this, I've looked at this, I've compared this and compared this. I think this should be the best line of action we need to take. This should be the next thing we should be doing for us to be able to generate more revenue, for us to satisfy our customer, for us to meet our business objective, for us the solution to meet its expectations. So recommending actions to increase value is done to understand the factors that create differences between potential value and actual value, and then to recommend the course of action to align those two. So these are basically different things, right? We're talking about factors that create the differences between potential value and actual value. Once you be able to identify those factors, then you can be able to recommend a course of action that will help to align those two factors. It basically focuses on understanding the aggregate of the performed assessment and also identifying alternatives and actions to improve solution performance. Recommendations basically identify how a solution should be replaced, or how a solution should be retired, or how a solution should be enhanced. In the sense that bringing it down to the customer care agent's solution I was talking about, you can say, okay, let's replace this customer care agent. Let's replace this guy with a lady. Maybe a lady could do a better job, right? Or we want us to retire it. I don't think having this mobile customer care agents will solve anything. Let's just remove it, because I don't think it's going to solve the problem of customer waiting time, right? Or we could say, let's enhance it. This person is doing a good job, but I believe if we should increase the number of customer care agents and give them proper training, the waiting time will reduce drastically. So we can recommend for the business to either replace or to retire or to enhance the solution. They may also consider long-term effects and contribution of the solution to stakeholder, and this may include recommendations to adjust the organization to allow for maximum solution performance and value realization. To come up with good recommendations for the solution, the first thing we need to do is to adjust solution performance measures. So you can say, okay, because we've looked at it across board, you said you want to reduce it by 5 minutes, but from what we've seen, and since we've ingested this solution into this particular problem, what we've realized is that, yes, customers were waiting 30 minutes before, but because of this, customers are now ending up waiting 15 minutes on the average. So instead of us going with a 5 minutes performance measure, why don't we adjust this performance measure to say 10 minutes and see what can come out of it in the next 1 month, or adjust it to 15 minutes to see what can come out of it in the next 6 months. So in some cases, the performance of the solution is considered acceptable, but may not support the fulfillment of business goals and objectives. Analysis reports will need to be done to identify and define more appropriate measures that will be required. So when you realize that 5 minutes is not achievable, is not attainable, then it might need for you to adjust the performance measures of that particular solutions. Another one is to come up with recommendations, right? While recommendations often describe ways to increase solution performance, this is not always the case. Depending on the reason for lower than expected performance, it may be reasonable to take no action at all, or to adjust factors that are internal or external to the solution, or reset expectations for the solution. Some common examples of recommendations that a BA would likely make to increase solution performance is, number one, to do nothing, right? You can say, I don't think people need to do anything. Just keep it that way. With time, probably the change may occur, or the solution could improve, right? It may also be impossible to make a change with the resources available, maybe because we don't have the number of resources. A good example is this. Let's say you say the solution to meeting customer expectation is having more marketing staff that can go ahead to market our goods, or having more developers to ensure that we build our solutions on time. But when you make the recommendation of having more developers and this company or the business or the organization realizes that they don't even have the sufficient financial backing to accommodate extra manpower. So we can say, okay, maybe let's not do anything then. Let's just continue managing this particular situation. Another recommendation could be an organizational change. Maybe you want the organization to, people have to change a lot of things for this to occur. Example using our banking scenario that we're using since could be, okay, because of the fact that we know that this problem occurs a lot on Mondays and also on Fridays. What if we have a way whereby we come up with an automated process where people, while entering, they can easily indicate if the kind of inquiries they want to make. And at the point of indicating that inquiry they want to make, the customer care agent gets notified or gets an alert of, okay, customer LC, customer Motun wants to make so and so inquiry. So he or she will need to go and meet that customer rather than going one by one to all customers on the queue to ask them what is your complaint about, to understand what their complaint about, to know if she should attend to them or not. But customers can easily, at the beginning, maybe before entering the banking hall, probably there's a system that will tell them what is your type of, what are you here for, right? Is it to deposit money, to make inquiries, right? If it's to make inquiries, you click on it. What nature of inquiries? Maybe ATM card not functional, inquiries on how to open account, blah, 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 blah. So once they make those selections using that automated system, it can notify the customer care agent maybe on a device that he or she is holding, and he or she knows the customer that is coming in that needs that particular service that the mobile customer care agents will be able to provide. So it could be an organizational change in terms of improving or changing personnel, organizational structure, business process, or thereabouts. It could also be to reduce the complexity of interfaces, right? This might be reducing the reducing the bottleneck, right? A lot of bottleneck. Maybe maybe you realize that whenever a customer comes to make inquiry on something as minute as anything, there needs to be approval. Our guy needs to approve this thing before we do it for you. You need to do this one before we do it for you. A good example is this. So I wanted to make a request, right? For my, I remember when I opened my dollar account. So upon opening my dollar account, I said, okay, that same day I wanted to make request for my card, my debit card, right? So when making request for my debit card, I went to the customer care agents. Ideally, I believe before the thing would have been you have to sit down and wait and do this and do this. When the process is, they tell you that, okay, you're finished, you can come back another day. But because I was pressed with time and I kind of know someone in the bank, like my account manager, I've been relating with her for a long time, all throughout the period of opening the account and all of that. So she just directed me to where to go. And when I got there, all I did was just to fill the form and then took the form to the cashier and then took another form to the customer care agents, and they said, okay, I can go. Unlike before that, once I take the form, I have to wait for them to type it into the system, and then they'll not tell me that it's okay, that they've done it, I should be able to go. But now it's a lot more faster, right? So it could be a point of reducing a lot of complexities, because sometimes they tell you that, first of all, you have to go and be on the queue, and then when you queue, you put in your money. When you put in your money, then you bring the money to come and do this. So it could be reducing complexity of interfaces. That could be a recommendation you could make. It could be eliminating redundancy. So many businesses have a lot of redundant processes, right? Redundant processes. It's just like someone will tell you that, if my Oga does not sign this form, you can't do anything. But does that mean that if your Oga is on leave, business will not continue? So there are lots of redundant processes, right? In different businesses, in different solutions. You could be eliminating that redundancy that will help that could be the recommendation. It could also be to avoid waste of time, waste of people's use of resources, right? That could also be the recommendation you could make. It could be the identification of additional capabilities, right? Maybe let's train this person. The person will be able to take up this particular thing more effectively. Let's inject more number and investment into this, and it could help improve the potential value of that solution. And then another recommendation you can make is to retire the solution. So this thing, I don't think it's going to work. We've tried it for a year, we've tried it for 6 months, and you're getting the same results. So let's just retire it, right? And when retiring, you have to consider the ongoing cost versus the initial investment. You look at the various alternatives that you had and the maintenance cost. You look at the necessity. Must that solution components have a limited lifespan? Or after a certain point in the life cycle of it, will it become impracticable or impossible to maintain the existing component? Is it that with time the cost of having a customer care agent, a mobile customer care agent, will the cost outweigh the benefits, right? So if the cost actually outweigh the benefits we are going to get, right, then we need to retire the solution. Another one is to look at the opportunity cost and then look at sunk cost. Sunk cost basically describes the money and effort already committed to an initiative that you're not going to be getting back. So the psychological impact of sunk cost may make it difficult for stakeholders to objectively assess the rationale for replacement or elimination, as they may feel reluctant to waste the effort or money already invested. Imagine someone said, okay, want to have that mobile customer care agent, and after a year, you realize that you have actually spent close to 4 million naira setting up that particular solution, right? Or you spend close to almost 80 million naira setting up that particular solution in the case of a system, right? And then after the end of the day, it's not delivering you value. When you tell somebody that, let's retire this snippet, something I spent 80 million naira to build, I think we should retire it for what? So the psychological impact of sunk costs most times makes stakeholders not to objectively to retiring the solution. So that brings us to the end of the session today. I don't know if you have any questions. I'll be very much glad to entertain. But before that, can I just request for your 5-10 minutes, please?
Okay.
If you don't mind. Thank you.